Probably you have lived in Spain for some time, for a couple of months, maybe you've just arrived and you've been enjoying your stay here, but then you probably realize that soon you'll have to renew your non-lucrative residence permit. So today we're going to look at this matter more in detail. Where to start, how long it will take, when to file, what to present, and some other tips. Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. My name is Linda Svilane and I'm the co-founder of Valencia relocation agency. This video is only for Spanish residents who hold non-lucrative residence permit. So we are going to look only at this special permit. If you hold it and you plan to change it, yes, it is possible. You can change it to work permit, to self-employed permit, or even golden visa, so-called. But at the moment we're going to look only on how to renew your non-lucrative residence permit, in other words also called the retirement permit. Today we decided to talk about this because this is the permit we have worked most with. Most of our clients who arrive from Canada, the United States, Australia, come specifically with this type of permit, so we have lots of experience and practice and we wanted to share it with you. First things first, the timeline. When you entered Spanish territory or even Schengen territory, your passport probably was stamped. So that date is the starting date for your non-lucrative residence permit. You probably hold a TIA card, the Tarjeta de Identidad de Extranjero, and the starting date of this card is the day when you entered the Spanish territory. So we're going to look at the timeline from that moment. After a year, your temporary permit will expire and you should file for renewal. After the first year, you will have to file another time for another 2 years and then for another 2 years. So basically in 5 years' time you can become a long-term resident, like so-called permanent resident, but at the moment you have to focus on the first 5 years. The first and the second renewals are exactly the same, and the third one, when you apply for a long-term permit, it is slightly different, but the general idea is still the same. Every renewal consists of two parts. Probably you remember quite well when you did the initial application for the non-lucrative visa. So it is a bit similar. Basically, you have to apply for non-lucrative visa renewal first, get the approval letter, and only afterwards you can exchange or basically apply for a new residence card. So again, we're looking at two stages. Today we're going to look into the first stage, which is the most important one, on how to renew your residency. The timing is very important and our advice is to file rather sooner than later. If you check on your TIA card, the starting date is the date when you arrived in Spain or crossed the border of Schengen. So that is the starting date of your TIA card, and that is where we start to count the timeline. The first renewal has to be filed 60 days prior to the expiry date, that is 1 year after you entered Spain, or even like 90 days after the expiry date of your card. Our advice is not to leave it to the very last moment, especially because if you file on the last day, the period when you will be with no card will be longer. So as soon as you can file, you should go and file the application for renewal. Also, it is important to take into account that it's not like 2 months and 3 months after. It's 60 days and 90 days time frame. So basically you should count the days instead of looking at the months, because sometimes it can make a difference if you file on the very first or very last day. Okay, what are the general requirements? So number one, you should be a non-EU residence passport holder. So basically, most of the times we have worked with Americans or with Australians, with Canadians. So if you still hold this passport and you don't have an EU passport, it means that it's the first requirement. The second requirement, you should have clear criminal records in Spain. So hopefully it's not the case, but if you've done something that shouldn't have been done, then probably Spanish authorities will find that, and that may affect your possibilities for a positive outcome. Third thing is that you should actually live in Spain. With this type of permit, it's called residence permit because it's directly linked to your living in Spain. It doesn't mean that you cannot travel. Of course you can, but if you spend more than 6 months out of Spain, it could be an issue in renewal process. Another requirement is to file within the legal time frame, which we discussed earlier. So it's 60 days prior to expiry date and 90 days after the expiry date. One of the most important requirements for renewal is to have sufficient financial means to support yourself and your family. At the moment, it's around 2,200 euros for the main applicant, and additional 550 or 600 euros for every additional family member. So you can do the number yourself. You can use all possible means of proof to show your financial means. So most of the cases it's even possible to renew residence permit with your Spanish bank account statements. Sometimes a specific format is required that is signed and stamped and as according to Spanish bureaucracy. But also, of course, you can provide pension letters, your bank account or savings or fund statements from other countries. But then it is important to pay attention to legalization requirements, and also translation is required. Next requirement we should look at is the private health insurance. So basically, you still have to hold a valid private or public health insurance coverage in Spain. This coverage should include and cover exactly what the public system does. So it doesn't really matter if you're covered by public or private, but you have to prove that you are covered. And if you have children at the school age, you should provide also letters from school that they have been attending and they are enrolled during this school year. As you probably know, the homeschooling in Spain is not permitted. If you don't have the letters and if you have been doing homeschooling, it can lead to rejection. So if this is your situation, consult with a professional and see what can be done. Although currently this is not an obligatory requirement, but we do recommend to think about this before the immigration gets you. So it is not obligatory to provide proof that you have filed tax in Spain, but the immigration office has got the right to ask you for additional documents, including the latest tax reports from Spain. So as you probably know, if you live in Spain for more than 183 days, then you become a tax resident. And if so, and if you renew the residency, it may mean that the tax office and also the immigration office, they ask you to meet this requirement. So now we're going to go through the list of documents you should provide when filing for renewal. Of course, we won't be able to go in to specific details about each of them, but you can find more information on our guidelines. Number 1, EX01 forms, which you need to fill in for each applicant and sign accordingly. Number 2, you should provide as well copies of your passports of all pages. The reason why the immigration need to see all pages is because they check the stamps when you left and came back in Spain, and it has to do with the time you've lived in Spain. If you don't have any matching stamps, for example, you left Spain and then your passport was stamped and when you came back it wasn't, you can already start looking up the travel documents such as boarding cards or booking information, because the immigration office most likely will want to see that in order they can count the days you've spent in Spain between your initial visa and the first renewal, or your previous renewal and the current renewal. Number 3, you should provide as well copies of your residence cards, and of course all the documents that you provide, they should also come along with the originals, so you can show that you have the originals. Number 4, proof of financial means. This is probably the most important aspect in your renewal, and it's not only about the amount you have to provide, but also it's important to pay attention to the format of the documents you provide. Sometimes with Spanish bureaucracy, it's very important that the documents are legalized. It can also mean notarized in the country of origin and also accordingly translated, which most of the times, specifically when we work with the immigration office, means sworn translations. That is translators from the official list that is approved by the Spanish authorities. If we look at the financial means, then it is possible to renew the residency only with Spanish bank account statements. It is possible to combine. So if, let's say, if you receive a pension or if you have a regular income, you can show it, and also additionally you can show your savings and also your current account in Spain, so the immigration office has got a more complete picture of your financials. Another document you should provide is a proof of private or public health insurance. Basically, you have to show two aspects. One is the coverage, which you can show by providing a certificate of coverage issued by the insurer. It has to be a very complete policy with no co-payments, with zero deductibles, hospitalization, preventives, accidents are included. And then secondly, you have to show that you are current with the payment. So basically, if it's a direct debit from your bank account, it's advisable to print out the last payment receipt, or if you have paid a year upfront, then as well have a proof of the transaction, basically that you have done that, or to get a letter from the insurer that you are current with the payment. So basically those two aspects are important and they're checking. Additional to these documents, you also should download the state fee forms, and you should pay them prior to filing. Currently these are around 16 euros, but the amount can change and it can be increased, but that's around this amount is per applicant. Also, in the list of documents, if you have children, it's important to provide the previously mentioned school letters. And also additionally, if you wish, although it's not at the moment obligatory, you can provide a letter of integration, meaning that if you have been attending Spanish language courses or you have been volunteering for non-governmental organizations, then you also can provide this type of proof that you have been contributing to the society and trying your best to pick up the language, learn about the culture. But as I said, at the moment it's just optional, and it's basically your choice. For example, in Valencia, at the moment it is not obligatory to provide the proof of registration with the town hall. It's advisable to provide it anyway, so because it shows that you have lived in the city, it shows that your family members are registered with the town hall, and it simply as well makes it easier for the immigration office to contact you in case you have made like a mistake in your address. Then at least they can take the official document and see the correct address and send you a letter if need to. And if you have been a very good resident and filed tax in Spain, then I think it's a good idea to provide the tax report to your application, so the immigration office can see first how much money you've had, and also you've declared the tax anyway, so it will only help to your application. If you have lived here in Spain for 5 years and you have successfully gone through 2 renewal applications already, then your third one will be much easier. But there's one thing you have to know. There are actually 2 types of permits. One is a long-term Spanish resident, and the other one is a long-term EU resident. So what is the difference? Well, the difference is in filing. When you file for long-term Spanish permit, you only have to provide a copy of your passport, EX01 form, and also pay the fees. That's pretty much all you need to do. If you file for the long-term resident EU permit, you still have to provide proof of financial means and also private health insurance. But the question is, what is the difference between the two? The Spanish one authorizes you to live permanently in Spain, and after that your life becomes much easier. So if you don't plan to go to any other country to live there, I mean any other EU country, then probably the easiest way is to go with this one. If you consider moving to another EU country in future, then it's probably a good idea to apply for an EU long-term resident card, because that card will facilitate the exchange to the other country's card. It doesn't mean you will get it automatically, but the process should be easier, and you should get like the equal card in the country of your choice. When you become a permanent resident in Spain, your life should become even better, which means that you can work and be self-employed freely. It means you can bring your parents that are over 65. It means also that you are entitled to free public health care, and basically you become equal to other EU residents and Spaniards. What happens after you have filed either the first, second and third renewal? Basically, when you have received a positive outcome, then you should book an appointment with the police office and apply for your new card. If you have decided to file for renewal yourself, then we recommend you to download our detailed guidelines on how to do it. As a relocation company, over the past 5 years, we have assisted with this type of renewals on a daily basis. So in these guidelines, we have put practical examples, comments, our know-how and tricks on how to do it to make sure that your renewal is successful. I hope you enjoyed this video and see you soon. Bye. Labi?
Šito vajadzēja ieslēgt. Mēs vēl skaņā ierakstīsim.